There was an empty chair at the dinner table that night. It wasn't unusual for me to be alone at dinner. I often ate by myself, whether by choice or by circumstance. But this time, it felt like something bigger. Something final. The house was quiet, save for the soft ticking of the old clock in the hallway. I sat at the table, staring at the meal Sophie had made. A plate of pasta, some garlic bread, and a salad. The kind of dinner she'd always prepare when she was in a good mood. But tonight, there was no one to enjoy it with. This wasn't the first time Sophie had gone silent on me. There had been countless small moments over the past few months when I'd felt like I was losing her, but I'd brushed them off. I wasn't blind to the small changes, the extra time spent at work, the sudden late nights, the distracted phone calls. But I convinced myself it was nothing. After all, we had been together for 3 years, and we had our routines. Everyone has ups and downs, right? I'd seen it happen to other people. Relationships get boring, people drift apart, but they don't talk about it. Instead, they just act like everything's fine until one day, someone wakes up and realizes that they're alone. But not me, I thought. We were different. We weren't like those couples. We had something real. So, when Sophie said she was taking a weekend trip to clear her head, I didn't question it. I figured it was just a little break. She'd been working hard lately, and everyone deserves some time for themselves, right? But I should have questioned it. As soon as Sophie left, I felt it. The silence of the house was suffocating. It wasn't just the quiet, though. It was the absence of her presence. The way the house felt different without her walking around, making noise, and filling up the space. I knew I should have gone out, done something to distract myself, but instead, I stayed at home. I found myself staring at the empty chair across from me, wondering why she wasn't there. It had been a few hours since she left, and still, no word from her. No text, no call, nothing. That wasn't like Sophie. She'd always check in, even if it was just a quick message to say, "I'm thinking of you." But now, nothing. I tried to convince myself that she was just busy, that she didn't want to be interrupted during her me time, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When I went to bed that night, the room felt colder than usual. I turned over to her side of the bed, instinctively reaching out to where she would normally be, only to find the space empty. It's strange how you can get used to someone being there, how their absence leaves a void you didn't even realize existed. The next day, I called her. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey Sophie, it's me. Just wanted to check in and make sure everything's okay. Call me when you get a chance." Nothing. Not a single reply. The silence was deafening. That evening, I decided to take a walk. I didn't really know where I was going, but I needed to clear my head. I needed to figure out what was happening. Maybe I was just overthinking things. Maybe she just needed some space. But something inside me kept whispering that this wasn't just about space. As I walked through the quiet streets, my mind kept racing. I thought back to the last few weeks. The way Sophie had been acting distant. The way she'd been avoiding certain topics. The way she never seemed to be fully present when we were together anymore. I told myself it was just stress, just life. Relationships aren't always easy, and maybe we were just going through a rough patch. But then I thought about the things I had dismissed. The little details that didn't add up. The unexplained late nights. The new makeup she'd started wearing. The way she'd start texting whenever she thought I wasn't looking. I couldn't ignore it anymore. As I walked past the park, I passed a group of people sitting on a bench. It was a couple, young, laughing, carefree. They looked so happy, and for a brief moment, I felt jealous. Not because of what they had, but because I realized I didn't know what was going on in my own life anymore. I didn't recognize the person I had become, the one sitting alone at dinner, waiting for someone who might never come back. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through Sophie's messages, trying to make sense of it all. That's when I saw it. There, in the middle of the screen, was a message that stopped me in my tracks. "Can't wait to see you this weekend. I miss you. We need to be together more often." It wasn't from Sophie. It was from someone else. A name I didn't recognize. And that's when I knew. I wasn't the one she was thinking about when she said she needed space. I wasn't the one she was missing. I stood there, my fingers frozen over the phone, staring at that message like it had just slapped me across the face. My heart was racing in my chest. The words seemed to burn into my eyes. "Can't wait to see you this weekend. I miss you. We need to be together more often." It wasn't from Sophie. It was from someone else, a number I didn't recognize. The kind of message you send to someone you're more than just friends with. The kind of message that you'd never want your significant other to see. My hands shook as I quickly scrolled through the rest of the conversation. It wasn't a one-time message either. There were more, hundreds of messages, in fact, over the past few weeks. They were flirty, intimate, everything that shouldn't have existed between Sophie and someone else. I felt my stomach turn. I wanted to throw my phone across the street, but something held me back. Maybe it was disbelief, or maybe I was just too stunned to process what was happening. How could I have missed this? How could I have been so blind? But the evidence was right there. Sophie had been seeing someone else. And not just anyone, someone she clearly had feelings for. I scrolled back even further and found pictures of them together. Sophie and this person, laughing, holding hands, and in one photo, they were almost kissing. My mind couldn't process it. My body went cold, and the world around me seemed to spin. The air felt thicker, like I was suffocating, and all I wanted to do was run. Run far away from everything that I thought I knew. But instead, I stood there, alone in the park, staring at the phone in my hand. This was it. The moment I couldn't deny any longer. Sophie had been hiding something from me, something huge, and I had been too naive to see it. I felt anger rising in me, but it was mixed with confusion. How could she do this to me? We had built something together. Or at least, I thought we had. We had dreams, plans for the future. And now, I was left holding this phone, wondering where it all went wrong. I turned around and started walking back home. The streets felt like they were closing in on me. My mind kept replaying all the little moments that should have been red flags. The late nights when she said she was working, the secretive behavior, the way she started dressing differently, and how she'd become so distant in the last few months. I had dismissed it all. I had told myself I was just being paranoid. But now, looking back, I saw it all so clearly. Sophie had been planning this for a while. She had been preparing to leave me without me even knowing it. By the time I got back to the apartment, I was shaking. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to face the reality that the woman I had trusted, the one I thought I knew better than anyone, had been living a double life. But what was I supposed to do now? Confront her? Expose the truth? I didn't even know where to start. I walked through the door, the silence of the apartment greeting me like an old friend. Sophie wasn't back yet. It was just me and the weight of this newfound knowledge. I sat on the couch, still holding the phone in my hand. The message was still there, mocking me with its casual intimacy. My mind was racing, but I knew I had to be careful. If I confronted her too soon, she'd have an excuse. She'd try to spin it into something I couldn't fully grasp. I needed to plan. I needed to be smarter than that. For the rest of the evening, I did everything I could to keep my mind off it. I cleaned, tried to distract myself, but every time I looked around, everything felt wrong. The apartment, once a place of comfort, now felt cold and alien to me. I sat on the couch, the TV on, but completely ignored. I could feel every minute dragging by. I kept replaying the messages, imagining what Sophie was doing, who she was with, where she was. Finally, hours later, the door creaked open. Sophie walked in, her usual smile plastered on her face. "Hey, babe," she greeted, her voice light, almost too light. "How's it going?" I didn't respond immediately. I just looked at her. I don't know what I was expecting, but I could see in her eyes that she had no idea I knew what she had been doing. Her confidence was unsettling, like she was still in control of the situation, as if she believed I hadn't figured everything out. "I thought you'd be out," she continued, walking toward the kitchen as if nothing had changed. "I texted you earlier, didn't you see?" I didn't respond to her question. Instead, I just stood up and walked over to where she was, blocking her path. My chest was tight, and my heart was beating like it wanted to explode. Sophie froze for a moment, her eyes flickering with confusion. "Who is he?" I asked quietly, my voice steady, though I could feel the anger and betrayal bubbling up. Her face immediately shifted, the smile fading, replaced by an expression I couldn't read. She took a step back, her eyes darting to the side like she was trying to figure out how to play it off. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice faltering slightly. "The messages, the pictures, the lies. Don't pretend like you don't know." Her face went pale. For a moment, there was silence between us, the weight of her betrayal hanging in the air like an elephant in the room. Sophie opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked like she was trying to find a way to make it all disappear. But she couldn't. Not anymore. I could see the guilt in her eyes. She knew I knew. "You've been seeing someone else, Sophie. For how long?" I demanded. My voice was colder now, sharper. How long have you been lying to me? The silence that followed was deafening. The silence that hung between us felt suffocating, each passing second stretching into eternity. Sophie stood there, frozen, her eyes locked onto mine. It was as though the entire world had stopped moving, leaving just the two of us, one of us with all the answers, and the other, desperately trying to form an explanation that would make it all go away. I could see her fingers twitching, like she was trying to figure out her next move. She was already calculating, searching for the words to spin her web of excuses, but I wasn't going to let her. You're not going to talk your way out of this, Sophie, I said, my voice low and steady, though there was a tremor of hurt running beneath the surface. I know what you've been doing. I've seen the messages. I've seen the pictures. I don't need any more lies. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in what felt like forever, Sophie looked genuinely lost, as if she had no idea how to salvage this. The confident, self-assured woman who had always been able to charm her way out of anything was suddenly reduced to someone who couldn't even look me in the eye. I don't know what you want me to say, Sophie finally whispered, her voice barely audible. I never meant for it to get this far. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I took a step toward her, my anger rising. You didn't mean for it to get this far? How long were you planning on keeping this secret from me? How long were you going to act like everything was fine while you were running around behind my back? Sophie's eyes welled up with tears, but I wasn't buying it. It felt like a last-ditch attempt to make me feel sorry for her. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice shaking. I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. But her words felt empty. The damage had already been done. I had spent years of my life trusting her, loving her, believing that she was the one person who would never betray me. And now, I was left standing in front of a woman who had shattered everything. All the promises, all the moments we had shared, felt like they had been built on lies. I couldn't even look at her anymore without seeing the person she had become, the person who was willing to throw away everything we had for someone else. You don't get to do this, Sophie, I said, the words coming out with more force than I intended. You don't get to make excuses and expect me to just forgive you. I don't care about your apologies. I care about the fact that you took everything I gave you and threw it away without a second thought. And now, you expect me to just let it go? Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was just feeling so lost. You don't understand. You've been so distant lately. I felt so alone. The words hit me harder than I expected. I had noticed the changes in her, the way she'd been pulling away, the long nights when she'd be glued to her phone, the distance that had crept into our relationship. But I didn't realize just how much it had been affecting her. I never thought she would resort to this. Never thought she would look for comfort in someone else, rather than talking to me about it. But the more she spoke, the clearer it became. Sophie wasn't just sorry for what she had done. She was sorry for getting caught. And that made everything worse. You think I didn't notice, Sophie? I asked, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to remain calm. You think I didn't feel the distance between us? You think I didn't notice that you stopped being there for me? You shut me out, and instead of telling me what was going on, you went behind my back. You don't get to blame me for your mistakes. Sophie was silent for a moment, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered, almost too softly for me to hear. I'm so sorry. I shook my head, the rage within me growing stronger. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't stand the sight of the woman who had been my partner, the person I had trusted more than anyone, now reduced to nothing more than a stranger who had betrayed me. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to punch the walls and make it all go away. But I knew I couldn't. I knew I had to keep my composure, because if I didn't, I would lose control of everything. You're sorry, I repeated, my voice cold. You're sorry for what? For getting caught? For ruining everything we had? Because that's not an apology. That's just you trying to cover your tracks. Sophie's shoulders trembled as she let out a sob. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just, one thing led to another. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to fix it. How long has this been going on, Sophie? I demanded, my patience wearing thin. How long have you been lying to me? She hesitated for a long moment before answering, her voice barely above a whisper. A few months. I didn't know what to do. I felt like you weren't really there anymore. We stopped talking. We stopped being close. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. A few months? How had I missed it? How had I missed the slow unraveling of our relationship? The more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. The late nights, the extra time at work, the secretive behavior. It had all been right in front of me, and I had been too blind to see it. I didn't know what to say next. The anger had subsided, replaced by a dull, gnawing emptiness. It was like I had been living in a dream, and now I was awake to the harsh reality. Sophie wasn't the person I thought she was, and I wasn't sure who she was anymore. But as I stood there, staring at her, one thought kept running through my mind. Was this the end? Was this the point of no return? And then, as if on cue, Sophie stepped toward me, her hands trembling as she reached out. Please, please don't leave me, she whispered, her voice full of desperation. I'll do anything to fix this. Please, don't walk away. I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I had to decide now. Stay, and try to salvage whatever was left, or leave, and never look back. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way. I didn't know if there was even anything worth saving anymore. The words hung between us like thick fog, the silence stretching on, unbearable, suffocating. Sophie stood there, her face a mixture of desperation and guilt, her hands trembling as she reached out toward me. She was pleading now, something I hadn't expected. Please, please don't leave me, she whispered again, the words barely audible, but heavy with emotion. Her voice cracked, and I could see how hard it was for her to even form the words. I'll do anything to fix this. Please, don't walk away. I felt the weight of her touch before it even reached me, and I instinctively pulled back. It wasn't that I didn't care about her, or that I wanted to be cruel, but something in me had already broken. I'd been betrayed. The trust one had in her had shattered, and with it, the foundation of everything we had built together. I had never been the kind of person to give up easily on someone I loved, but at that moment, I wasn't sure what was left to fight for. The truth was, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. All the moments we shared, all the plans, all the dreams we had for the future, they felt like a lie now. How could I trust someone who had hidden so much from me? How could I look at her the same way after everything I had learned? Sophie's eyes were pleading, searching my face for any sign that I might forgive her. But I couldn't give her that. Not yet. Not after everything. You want me to believe that? I said, my voice low, the hurt in it unmistakable. You want me to believe that you're sorry, that you want to fix this? After everything? After lying to me for months, behind my back, while I was here, trusting you? Do you think I'm that stupid? She flinched, the words hitting her harder than I'd intended. But they were the truth. The cold, brutal truth. Sophie opened her mouth to say something, but I raised a hand to stop her. No, I interrupted, my voice firmer now. You don't get to explain this away. Not this time. Not anymore. I paused, my chest tightening with the weight of everything I was feeling. You've broken something in me, Sophie. Something I can't just forget. I can't look at you the same way again. I don't think I ever can. Her face crumpled again, tears welling up in her eyes as she struggled to find the right words. But she couldn't. She knew there was nothing she could say that would undo what she'd done. Nothing could take away the image of her with someone else, the words she'd shared with them, the secret life she'd been living behind my back. I never meant for it to get this far, she said again, her voice barely a whisper. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just lost. I thought maybe we could find our way back, but I didn't know how to fix it. And then she stopped, choking on her own words. I stood there, my mind spinning. She sounded like she regretted what she had done, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was just trying to salvage whatever she could. And that, perhaps more than anything else, hurt more than the betrayal itself. The thought that she wasn't really sorry for what she had done, but for the fact that she had gotten caught. It wasn't genuine regret. It was fear. Fear that the life she had built with me was slipping through her fingers, and she had no idea how to stop it. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I don't know if I can forgive you, Sophie. I don't know if I even want to. How do I ever trust you again after this? She collapsed onto the couch, her hands covering her face as she sobbed. Please, just don't give up on us. We can fix this. We can work through it. I swear. I love you. I don't want to lose you. I felt my chest tighten at the words. She loved me. She loved me while she was with someone else. She loved me while she was planning to leave me in the most cruel, heartless way possible. I didn't know what was worse, the betrayal or the fact that I still cared about her. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to leave and never look back. But a part of me, the part that still loved her, despite everything, told me to stay, to give her a chance. But I knew that wasn't fair to either of us. Staying would only prolong the pain. Staying would only feed into the illusion that everything could go back to how it was before. And deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I looked down at her, her face a mess of tears, her sobs echoing in the silence of the room. She was broken, and in a way, so was I. But the difference was, I wasn't the one who had torn us apart. I wasn't the one who had chosen to destroy everything. I don't know, Sophie. I whispered, more to myself than to her. I don't know if I can keep going with this. I don't know if I even want to try anymore. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Guilt, yes, but also something darker. A realization that maybe, just maybe, she had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. And I realized, as the seconds dragged by, that I wasn't the only one who was shattered. Sophie was too, but she wasn't broken because of what she had done. She was broken because she had lost control of something that had once been hers, me. The life we had built together. I turned away, walking slowly toward the door. I didn't want to leave, but I knew I had to. I couldn't stay in this house, not with all the memories of what we once had. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, not when it was so painfully clear that nothing would ever be the same again. As I reached for the door, I turned to look at her one last time. She was still sitting on the couch, her face in her hands, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything more. There was nothing left to say. I opened the door, stepped out into the hallway, and closed it behind me. And just like that, the life we had shared was over. I didn't know where I was going. My mind was spinning, and my feet carried me through the empty streets without a clear destination. The cool night air hit my skin, and yet, I felt no relief. Nothing could take away the rawness, the gnawing feeling in my stomach that made it hard to breathe. I kept replaying the events in my head, the words, the look on her face. I tried to find meaning in it all, but all I saw was a tangled mess of lies, manipulation, and betrayal. I had loved Sophie. I had trusted her. I had built my world around her, and now, in one brutal moment, that world had come crashing down. Every memory, every moment we had shared, now felt hollow. A lie. A performance for the sake of appearances. I reached a bench in the park and sat down, my hands running through my hair, the weight of the last few hours pressing down on me. I wanted to be angry, to scream and shout, to somehow make the pain go away, but it felt like my anger had run dry. It wasn't just betrayal that cut me. It was the realization that everything I had been living was a fantasy. I wasn't sure if I was more hurt by the affair or by the fact that Sophie had let me live in ignorance for so long. A single tear slipped down my cheek, and I wiped it away quickly, annoyed at myself for feeling weak. I had to be strong. I had to keep my head together, because the truth was, Sophie wasn't going to change. She had made her choice. I wasn't the one she wanted. But that didn't make the ache in my chest any easier. The emptiness. The questions that wouldn't stop. How could she do this to me? What had gone wrong? Had I been blind to her feelings for that long? Had she been planning this betrayal from the start? Or had it just happened? I couldn't get the answers I was desperately seeking. All I had now was this unbearable pain and a deep sense of loss. The sound of a car passing by startled me, and I looked up, realizing I had been sitting there for longer than I thought. The streets were quiet, and the city felt like a different place now. I had never felt more alone. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, staring at the screen. I hadn't blocked Sophie's number. Part of me, deep down, was still hoping she'd send a message, that maybe, just maybe, she'd tell me it was all a mistake, that she'd somehow realized the enormity of what she had done and would try to make things right. But no, the screen remained blank. Empty. She hadn't even reached out. I scrolled through the pictures on my phone, photos of us, smiles, vacations, moments of laughter. They all seemed so far removed from what was happening now. In every one of those photos, I could see a version of Sophie that wasn't this woman, the one who had lied to me, the one who had shattered our relationship without hesitation. I couldn't bring myself to delete the pictures, though. Part of me didn't want to let go of the memory of who we were. The problem was, I didn't know who we were anymore. I didn't know who I was, either. The sound of a text message broke through my thoughts. I immediately looked down at my phone, but it wasn't from Sophie. It was from a number I didn't recognize, and when I opened it, my heart stopped. Hey, I know you must be hurting right now, but we need to talk. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand like this. It was a message from the man she had been seeing. I stared at the words for what felt like an eternity, the bile rising in my throat. How dare he? How dare he contact me like this? My hand shook as I typed a quick reply, my fingers typing faster than my brain could process. Stay away from me. You've done enough damage. I hit send before I could think better of it. The message was blunt, maybe even too harsh, but I didn't care. I didn't want to hear his side of the story. I didn't care about his excuses. What was there left to say? He had taken something from me, something irreplaceable. He had stolen my trust, and I wasn't about to give him a chance to explain himself. My phone buzzed again, and I immediately regretted opening it. He had replied, I know this is hard, but I think you should hear me out. The nerve of this guy? My anger flared, but it wasn't directed at him anymore. It was at Sophie. She had allowed this. She had let him into our lives, into our space. He wasn't just a stranger to me. He was a symbol of everything I had lost, the trust, the respect, the love. I couldn't shake the thought of how easily she had replaced me, how easily she had thrown me aside for someone else. I threw my phone back into my pocket and leaned back on the bench, staring at the stars above. It felt like I was floating in space, untethered, drifting through a life I no longer recognized. The wind picked up slightly, and I closed my eyes, feeling the cold air against my skin. It wasn't enough to cool the fire inside of me, the anger that was now boiling over. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, anything, to make the feeling go away. But the truth was, there was no quick fix. There was no magical solution. The damage had been done, and now, I had to figure out what to do next. Did I confront Sophie again? Did I demand answers? Or did I just walk away, cut my losses, and try to rebuild a life that didn't involve her? The thought of leaving her behind felt like an impossible task, but the idea of staying and enduring the pain of knowing what she had done was just as unbearable. I stood up abruptly, my feet carrying me down the street again, no clear direction in mind, but determined to keep moving. Because for the first time in a long time, I realized that I was truly alone. Sophie had made her choice, and now, I had to make mine. The cold air bit at my skin, but it was nothing compared to the coldness I felt inside. I walked aimlessly through the streets, my mind racing with questions, but no answers. Every step I took felt like I was walking away from everything I had ever known. From Sophie, from the life we had built together. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't go back. The image of her with him, the lies, all of it was burned into my mind like a scar I couldn't erase. I thought back to the moments before I left the apartment. The way Sophie had looked at me, like she was trying to reach out, trying to hold on to something that had already slipped through her fingers. She'd cried. She'd begged me not to leave. But I had to. I couldn't stay in that house, not with the memory of everything she had done lingering in the air. It felt like I was suffocating. I found myself outside a bar I used to frequent years ago. It was a familiar spot, a place I'd gone to for the occasional drink with friends before life became so complicated. I didn't have the energy to go home. I didn't have the energy to face my own thoughts. I just needed to drown them out for a while. The inside of the bar was dimly lit, the smell of stale beer and old wood filling the air. It felt like I was stepping into a different world, a world where I wasn't the man I had been hours ago. Here, I could forget. Here, I didn't have to think about Sophie or the betrayal or the mess I was in. I walked up to the bar and sat down, signaling the bartender. "Whiskey," I said, my voice hoarse. The bartender gave me a look, one that said he wasn't sure if I was the type of guy who would sit in silence or want to talk. I wasn't in the mood for conversation, so I just nodded as he poured me a drink. The burn of the alcohol as it slid down my throat was almost a relief. For a few moments, I didn't think about anything. My mind slowed down, the constant churn of questions giving way to something quieter. But that didn't last long. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my fog. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Sophie. I stared at the screen for a moment, the little bubble that said, "One new message," taunting me. Should I read it? Should I ignore it? I took a long drink, hoping that the alcohol would give me the courage to just forget it. But the thing about Sophie is that no matter how much time passes, no matter how much space I create between us, I'm always going to care. I'll always wonder if she's truly sorry, if she truly regrets everything, or if it's just another act. I pulled the phone out of my pocket, opened the message, and felt my heart drop. I don't know how to fix this. I love you. Please, don't leave me. I swear I'll change. I'll do anything. The words hit me like a punch. I felt the familiar stir of emotion in my chest. Anger, confusion, sadness, and a twisted sense of hope. Did she really mean it? Was she truly sorry? Or was this just another attempt to hold on to the life she had built with me, now that it was slipping away? I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I needed to think. I needed to sort through the mess in my mind, to decide if I could ever believe her again, if I could ever trust her. The bartender noticed me staring at my phone, and I could see the sympathy in his eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked. His voice was kind, but it felt intrusive. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to think about it. "I'll be fine," I muttered, my voice flat. I wasn't fine, though. I wasn't anywhere close to being fine. I finished the drink in front of me, my mind now buzzing with the words Sophie had sent. Love, change, anything. But what did that even mean? Could someone like Sophie really change? Could she undo the damage she had done? Could I ever look at her and not see the lies? Not see the betrayal? I looked around the bar, the dim lighting, the quiet hum of music in the background, and I felt like I was in a foreign world. A world where I didn't belong. A world where I wasn't the man who had been living in a relationship based on trust, based on love. That man was gone now, shattered by the reality of what Sophie had done. I stood up from the bar, suddenly feeling restless. The walls of the place felt like they were closing in on me. I couldn't stay here, not with all the questions swirling in my head. I needed to keep moving. I needed to escape. I left the bar without a word, my mind still fixed on Sophie's message. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should give her another chance, or if I should walk away for good. I pulled my jacket tighter around me and stepped into the night air, the cold wind stinging my face. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, I didn't hesitate. I opened it. "Please just come home. I need you. I'm sorry. I made a mistake." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the words crash over me. I wasn't ready to go back, not yet. I didn't even know if I ever would be. But what I did know, as I walked down the street, lost in my thoughts, was that the pain was still there, and it was going to stay with me for a long time. No matter what happened next, no matter what decision I made, I would never be the same again. The streets felt endless as I walked through them, my mind racing, my heart a tangled mess of confusion and anger. Every step I took felt like it was pulling me further from everything I had known, but at the same time, I couldn't seem to stop moving. I needed to be somewhere, anywhere, but I didn't know where that was. I had to get away from her, from the weight of her betrayal, from the guilt I was still carrying, even though I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the memory of her face. Sophie, crying, begging me to stay. Her words replayed over and over in my head, like a broken record. "I love you. I'll change. Please don't leave me." It was a lie. I had to believe it was a lie, because if I didn't, I was just going to fall into the same trap I had before, believing her every word, letting myself get hurt again. But deep down, I wasn't sure what I believed anymore. She had hurt me, yes, but I couldn't help wondering, could we fix this? Was there even a chance of fixing what had been broken? I stopped outside a small cafe that was still open at this hour. The lights inside were warm, inviting, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness that had settled in my chest. I stared at the door for a moment, torn. I had no real reason to go in, except that it felt like it would give me a few moments to breathe. Just a few moments away from my thoughts, from the storm of emotions that was threatening to consume me. I pushed open the door and walked in, the warm air hitting me like a hug. There weren't many people inside, just a few late-night customers scattered around, absorbed in their own worlds. I took a seat at the bar, my eyes drawn to the chalkboard menu in front of me, but none of it registered. I wasn't really hungry. I wasn't really there. The barista, a young woman with short red hair, looked up as I approached. She smiled, but there was a note of hesitation in her eyes. I probably looked like a mess. Hell, I felt like one. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice soft, as though she could sense the storm brewing inside me. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know anything anymore. My usual order came to mind, but it felt meaningless. "Just water," I said, my voice hoarse. She nodded and turned away, leaving me with my thoughts. The silence in the cafe was almost comforting, like a refuge from the chaos in my head. I sat there, watching the water drip into the glass, and I thought about everything I had learned in the past few days. About Sophie, about the other man, about the lies that had been built into the very fabric of our relationship. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was truly sorry, that she regretted everything. But what if it wasn't just a mistake? What if this was who she was? What if everything I had thought I knew about her was just an illusion, built on empty promises and false hopes? My phone buzzed again, a message flashing across the screen. It was Sophie. Please, just talk to me. I can't do this without you. I made the biggest mistake of my life. You're the one I want. I stared at the message for a long time. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just emptiness. I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't let myself go down this path again. She had shown me who she was, and now I had to face the truth. It wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't even about love. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, could never be rebuilt. I felt the weight of that truth settle deep inside me. It wasn't just the affair that had broken me. It was the realization that I had been blind to everything else. The signs, the warnings, the small things that had slipped through the cracks. How had I let it go on for so long? How had I let myself get so lost in the idea of who Sophie was, that I couldn't see who she really was? I didn't respond to her message. Instead, I set the phone down on the counter, letting it buzz again and again, each time like a distant echo of the past I was trying to walk away from. The barista returned with my water, setting it down in front of me. I barely noticed her. I didn't notice anything. All I could think about was how everything had changed, how everything felt so wrong. "Are you all right?" she asked gently, as if sensing the heaviness in the air. I looked up at her, meeting her gaze for the first time. There was a softness in her eyes, an empathy that felt worlds apart from the harsh reality I was living. For a moment, I almost wanted to tell her everything, to pour my heart out to a stranger, to share the burden I was carrying. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because there were no words to explain what had happened, no easy way to explain the pain of loving someone who had betrayed you. "I'm fine," I said, my voice flat. "I just need some time." She nodded, her expression understanding but distant. She walked away without another word, leaving me alone with my thoughts once again. The minutes passed, but time didn't seem to matter. It was like I was trapped in a moment that wouldn't end, the weight of everything bearing down on me. I couldn't keep running away from the truth. I couldn't keep pretending that things were going to get better. They wouldn't. I finished the water in one long drink, setting the glass down with a soft thud. I paid the bartender, then walked out of the cafe, back into the night. I needed to go home. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there. Maybe I'd confront her again. Maybe I'd just leave. Maybe I'd just disappear. But as I walked down the street, I realized something. This wasn't just about Sophie. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about me. It was about how I had let myself become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had been so desperate for love, for approval, that I had ignored the red flags. I had ignored my own instincts. I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that everything would work out, that things would go back to normal. I couldn't let myself fall into that trap again. Not for her. Not for anyone. I reached my apartment, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I stood in front of the door, taking a deep breath. I was at a crossroads now. I could go back in and try to fix things, or I could walk away and never look back. And for the first time in a long time, I knew what I had to do. I turned and walked away. The walk away from my apartment wasn't easy. Each step felt like I was leaving behind a part of myself that I wasn't sure I was ready to lose. But as I walked, I realized something. I wasn't just leaving behind the pain, the betrayal, or the confusion. I was also leaving behind the version of me that allowed himself to be consumed by someone else's mistakes. I was finally choosing myself. I had spent so many months, so many years, wrapped up in the idea of Sophie and us. But I realized that I had stopped being me. I had let her, and everything between us, define my happiness. And when that crumbled, it felt like the world had too. But it didn't have to be that way. I didn't have to let my future be dictated by the past. I walked further from the apartment, heading toward the park where I used to run in the mornings. The air was crisp, and though the streets were dark, the stars above were bright, almost like they were telling me that things would get better. I didn't know how or when, but I felt a small glimmer of hope. The weight on my chest felt lighter, and the air seemed fresher as I continued to walk. By the time I reached the park, I stopped for a moment and took in the view. The city skyline loomed in the distance, the familiar hum of life all around me, yet I felt like I was in a completely different world. It was like everything had changed in an instant, but I was starting to see it clearly. The world was big, and I had been so focused on just one small corner of it. There were so many possibilities ahead of me, so many things I hadn't even considered before. Things I could focus on, my career, my passions, my own growth. The life I had been building was no longer dependent on someone else. It was my life, and I could take it in whatever direction I wanted. I pulled out my phone, hesitating for just a second before I typed a message. I wasn't going to let the past weigh me down anymore. I wasn't going to keep obsessing over the what-ifs and the maybes. It was time to move on, to take control. Hey, it's me. I just wanted to thank you for being there for me, even when I didn't realize it. I'm moving forward now, and I think I'm finally starting to understand what I need. No hard feelings. I pressed send, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I didn't need to hold on to anger. I didn't need to carry the weight of resentment. I had let go of what had been holding me back, and now I was free to be me again. I had my own path ahead of me, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me anymore. The night was still quiet, but it felt peaceful. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could hear my own thoughts without them being clouded by doubt or heartbreak. I didn't know what was going to come next, but I knew it had to be better than where I had been. I took one last deep breath, then headed toward the nearest coffee shop. It wasn't just about moving on, it was about making the decision to live again. And that was the first step toward a new beginning.